I want you to picture two apartments. Same city, same neighborhood, similar rent. The first apartment belongs to someone earning $95,000 a year. Walk inside and you'll find a 75-inch television mounted on the wall, a leather sectional that cost $3,500, a kitchen full of gadgets, an espresso machine, an air fryer, a stand mixer, a sous vide cooker, most of them used twice and now sitting in the back of cabinets like trophies from a life that was supposed to feel better than it does. The closet is full. The spare bedroom is full. The garage storage unit, $120 a month, is full of things that haven't been touched in 2 years but can't be thrown away because they cost too much. This person checks their bank account with a knot in their stomach. They have $2,200 in savings. They're 2 missed paychecks away from a crisis. They make $95,000 a year, and they are, by any honest measure, broke. The second apartment belongs to someone earning $54,000 a year. Walk inside, and you'll notice something immediately. Space. A modest couch, a reasonably sized television, a kitchen with exactly the tools that get used regularly, a good knife, a cast iron skillet, a coffee maker that cost $30 and works perfectly. The closet has clothes in it, not a collection, clothes, things that get worn. The spare bedroom is actually a bedroom. This person checks their bank account with calm confidence. They have 14 months of expenses saved. They invest 20% of every paycheck. They sleep through the night without doing mental math about whether they can cover next month's rent if something goes wrong. Same neighborhood. The person earning almost half as much has nearly 10 times the financial security. And if you met them both at a dinner party, you'd assume the first person was doing better. Because the first person looks like they're doing better. They have the stuff. They have the lifestyle. They have the visible signals of financial success. But financial security is invisible, and the gap between looking successful and being secure is the most expensive gap in personal finance. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why people who earn less consistently end up with more. More savings, more freedom, more options, more peace, and what they understand about money that high earners never learn until it's too late. My name is Andy, and this is Andy Explains Money. The first person in that apartment isn't bad with money in any obvious way. They don't gamble, they don't have an expensive addiction, they don't make catastrophically stupid purchases. They just gradually, imperceptibly, over the course of years, accumulated a lifestyle that requires every dollar they earn to sustain. The lifestyle expanded with every raise, every bonus, every promotion. And now, the lifestyle is the boss. It tells them how much they need to earn. It tells them which jobs they can consider. It tells them how much risk they can take. It tells them whether they can say no. The second person discovered something that most high earners never figure out, and it changed everything. They learned that owning less doesn't mean living worse. It means living deliberately. And deliberate living creates financial margin that most people, even people earning twice as much, never experience. That margin is the entire game. Not income, not returns, not the investment strategy or the stock picks or the side hustle. Margin. The gap between what you earn and what you need. Everything else, the investing, the compounding, the wealth building, the financial freedom, is downstream of that gap. If the gap doesn't exist, none of the rest of it works. Let me show you why the gap doesn't exist for most high earners, and why it almost always exists for the people who appear to have less. There's a concept I want to introduce that will reframe how you think about every purchase you make for the rest of your life. Everything you own costs you money twice. The first cost is obvious. It's the purchase price, the number on the receipt, the amount that left your bank account. Everybody sees this cost. Everybody factors it into their decision. This is the cost the store shows you, the cost your brain anchors to, the cost you use to decide whether something is worth it. But there's a second cost that most people completely ignore. And for many possessions, the second cost is larger than the first. The second cost includes storage. Every object you own takes up space. Space costs money. In most American cities, the implicit cost of residential space runs roughly $30 to $50 per square foot annually. A treadmill takes up about 20 square feet when you account for the clearance space around it. That's $600 to $1,000 per year in implicit rent you're paying to store a piece of exercise equipment that, statistically, becomes a clothes hanger within 6 months. You're not just paying for the treadmill, you're paying rent on the treadmill's apartment. The second cost includes maintenance. Every object requires some form of upkeep. It needs to be cleaned, serviced, repaired, updated, insured. That boat sitting in your driveway needs winterization, cleaning, registration, insurance, and occasional repairs. The industry rule of thumb is that annual maintenance costs run about 10% of a boat's purchase value. A $30,000 boat costs $3,000 per year just to own, even if you never take it on the water. Even if it sits in the driveway for 12 months collecting leaves. The meter is running whether you use it or not. The second cost includes mental energy. This is the one nobody calculates because it doesn't show up on a statement. But every item you own occupies a small slice of your cognitive bandwidth. It needs to be organized, tracked, worried about, maintained, insured, and, eventually, disposed of. Researchers have found that visual clutter measurably increases cortisol levels and reduces the brain's ability to focus and make decisions. Your stuff is literally stressing you out in ways you can't consciously perceive. The mental tax of ownership is real, it's constant, and it accumulates with every item you add to your life. The second cost includes opportunity cost. This is the big one. Every dollar locked up in a possession is a dollar that's not invested. That $12,000 home gym setup, the one that seemed like a smart investment in your health, could have been $12,000 in an index fund. At 8% average annual returns, that $12,000 grows to roughly $40,000 over 15 years. You didn't just buy a home gym. You bought a home gym instead of $40,000 in future wealth. The treadmill didn't just cost $1,200. It cost $1,200 plus the storage, plus the maintenance, plus the mental energy, plus the $4,000 that money would have become over 15 years. The receipt showed you $1,200. The true cost was closer to $8,000. When you add up these hidden costs, storage, maintenance, mental energy, opportunity cost, many possessions cost more to own over their lifetime than they cost to purchase. The purchase price is just the admission fee. The ongoing costs continue for as long as you possess the item. And most people never add them up because each individual cost is small enough to ignore. It's the financial equivalent of death by 1,000 cuts. No single cut kills you, but 1,000 of them will bleed you dry. The people who always seem to have more money than their income would suggest, they've done this math. Maybe not explicitly, maybe not on a spreadsheet, but intuitively, they've internalized that ownership has a cost that extends far beyond the receipt. And they've decided, consciously, deliberately, that most things aren't worth it when you calculate the true price. This leads to the first rule that separates people who always have money from people who never do, regardless of income. Calculate cost per use before any purchase. Before buying anything, estimate how many times you'll realistically use it. Not how many times you hope to use it. Not how many times the best version of yourself would use it. How many times you'll actually use it, given your real life and your real habits. Divide the total cost, including the hidden costs, by that number. This gives you the cost per use, which is the only honest measure of value. A $200 jacket you wear twice costs $100 per wear. A $400 jacket you wear 200 times costs $2 per wear. The expensive jacket is actually 10 times cheaper in any meaningful sense. Cost per use destroys most impulse purchases instantly. That $300 kitchen gadget you'll use 3 times a year costs $100 per use. Meanwhile, a $30 kitchen tool you use weekly costs 58 cents per use over the first year. The math cuts through the marketing, the emotion, and the social pressure. It reveals what actually makes financial sense versus what just felt exciting in the store. Cost per use also reveals which purchases are genuinely worthwhile. A $2,000 mattress used every night for 10 years costs about 55 cents per use. That's extraordinary value for something that affects your health, energy, and cognitive function every single day. A $1,500 espresso machine used daily for 5 years costs less than $1 per use, and probably saves money compared to the coffee shop. Not everything is a waste. The math just shows you which things aren't. Here's the second rule, and it requires uncomfortable honesty. Apply the replacement test to everything you own. Walk through your home. Look at each item. Ask yourself one question. If this item disappeared today, just vanished, would I spend money to replace it? Be honest. Would you actually go buy another fondue set? Would you replace that bread maker collecting dust in the cabinet? Would you repurchase those clothes you haven't worn in over a year? For most items, the honest answer is no. You would not replace them. They exist in your life through inertia, not intention. They were impulse purchases, gifts you felt obligated to keep, or remnants of past hobbies and phases you've moved beyond. These items have negative value. They cost you space, mental energy, and maintenance without providing any corresponding benefit. Every hour spent organizing, cleaning around, or thinking about things you wouldn't replace is an hour stolen from activities that actually matter to you. The people who always have money don't just avoid buying unnecessary things. They actively remove unnecessary things. They sell what has value, donate what someone else could use, and discard what serves nobody. And the result isn't deprivation, it's clarity. The psychological weight of owning things you don't want or need is substantial. Removing that weight creates mental space that's immediately noticeable. Decisions feel simpler. Cleaning takes half the time. You know where everything is because everything remaining has a purpose. Rule 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. There's a pattern I see constantly among people who earn good incomes but accumulate nothing. They replace perfectly functional items because they're bored with them. Their television works perfectly, but the new model has slightly better contrast. Their phone operates flawlessly, but the latest release has a marginally improved camera. Their car runs reliably, but the new model year has updated styling. Their furniture serves its purpose, but they've grown tired of looking at it. These upgrades feel like improvements. They feel like progress. They feel like treating yourself. What they actually are is wealth destruction disguised as an upgrade cycle. The people who always have money maintain a strict policy. Never replace something that still functions properly. The phone that makes calls, sends messages, and runs apps does not need replacement because a newer phone exists. The car that reliably transports you does not need replacement because the neighbor bought something shinier. Here's what this policy saves over a lifetime. The average American replaces their phone every 2 to 3 years, often while the previous phone works perfectly. Over 30 years, this pattern costs $30,000 to $50,000 in unnecessary upgrades, not counting the accessories and cases and screen protectors that come with each new device. Apply the same upgrade cycle to cars, furniture, electronics, appliances, and clothing, and the lifetime waste easily exceeds $200,000. $200,000. Not from being irresponsible, not from making one catastrophic mistake, from a series of small, socially acceptable upgrades that each felt completely reasonable in the moment. The people who always have money define broken differently than everyone else. An item needs replacement when it genuinely fails to perform its required function. Boredom is not failure. The desire for novelty is not failure. The existence of a newer version is not failure. Actual breakdown or genuine inability to perform the task is failure. Everything else is marketing designed to solve a problem you don't have. Rule 4. Engineer friction for spending and ease for saving. Human behavior follows the path of least resistance. This isn't a character flaw, it's how brains are wired. If spending is easy and saving is difficult, you'll spend. If saving is easy and spending is difficult, you'll save. The people who always have money don't rely on willpower. They design systems. Spending friction looks like this. Removing stored credit card numbers from online retailers so every purchase requires manually entering the card. Instituting a 48-hour waiting period before any non-essential purchase. Deleting shopping apps from your phone. Unsubscribing from every promotional email. Avoiding stores unless you have a specific, pre-decided purchase in mind. Saving ease looks like this. Automatic transfers to investment accounts on payday, before you ever see the money in your checking account. Keeping only small amounts in easily accessible accounts. Making investment contributions happen before you have a chance to spend the money. Treating savings like a fixed bill, not an afterthought. These structural changes matter more than willpower because willpower is a depleting resource. It runs out. Every day. Especially when you're tired, stressed, or emotional, which is exactly when most impulse spending happens. Someone relying on willpower to avoid unnecessary purchases will eventually fail. Someone who deleted the shopping apps and removed the saved credit card numbers simply cannot impulse purchase in that moment. The option doesn't exist. The 48-hour rule alone eliminates roughly 70% of impulse purchases. Most desires for objects fade within a day if they're not acted on immediately. The wanting was never about the object. It was about the momentary emotional hit of deciding to buy. Remove the ability to act on that impulse instantly, and the desire usually dissolves on its own. Rule 5. Define enough before your income grows. Here's the trap that catches high earners constantly, and it's the trap that explains why people earning $95,000 end up with less than people earning $54,000. They never define what enough looks like, so they keep spending more without ever arriving at satisfaction. Their income increases, so they upgrade their lifestyle. The new lifestyle becomes the baseline, so they need another income increase to feel any progress. This cycle continues indefinitely. People earning $300,000 per year report feeling just as financially stressed as people earning $80,000, because their expectations and expenses expanded alongside every raise. The people who always have money, the ones who build real wealth on modest incomes, break this cycle by defining enough in advance. They decide before their income grows what kind of home is sufficient, what kind of car meets their needs, what level of material comfort constitutes genuine satisfaction. Then they earn toward that target rather than constantly moving it. This might mean deciding that a $300,000 home is enough, even if you eventually could afford $550,000. That a $25,000 car is sufficient, even when colleagues drive $65,000 vehicles. That your current wardrobe is adequate, even as your income could support constant upgrades. Defining enough creates a finish line. Without it, you're running an endless race where lifestyle expansion always outpaces income growth. No matter how fast you run, you never arrive. With it, you reach a point where additional income flows entirely to saving and investing rather than consumption. The person who defined enough at $50,000 of annual spending and then earned $90,000 builds wealth at an extraordinary rate. $40,000 a year flowing directly toward financial freedom. Meanwhile, someone earning the same $90,000 who constantly redefines enough upward might save almost nothing. The gap between these two people has nothing to do with income. It has everything to do with whether they set a finish line or let the goalposts move with every raise. Rule 6. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. The conventional view measures wealth by what you have: houses, cars, possessions, visible markers of success. The people who always have money measure wealth differently. They measure it by what they can choose. Can you leave a job that's damaging your mental health? Can you take 3 months off to handle a family emergency? Can you move to a new city for a relationship? Can you start a business without guaranteed income? Can you say no to opportunities that pay well but cost you something more important? These options, this optionality, represents true wealth. And optionality is only available to people who've built substantial margin between their income and their expenses. The person earning $200,000 but spending $195,000 has almost no optionality. They're chained to their income requirement. They can't take a pay cut. They can't take a risk. They can't say no. Their lifestyle has made them a prisoner of their own earnings. The person earning $54,000 but spending $38,000 has extraordinary optionality. They can absorb disruptions. They can take career risks. They can make decisions based on what they actually want rather than what they financially need. They can say no to things that don't serve them and yes to things that do, because the margin exists. Every purchase isn't just exchanging money for an object. It's trading optionality for possession. The question that the people who always have money ask before every purchase, the question that makes them different, is this: is this item worth reducing my ability to make free choices about my life? Sometimes the answer is yes. A good home in a good neighborhood, absolutely. Reliable transportation, yes. Quality food that supports your health, of course. But the fourth streaming service? The upgraded phone? The designer jacket that performs the same function as the one you already own? When you frame the purchase as a trade against your freedom, most of those decisions become very simple. That second apartment I described at the beginning, the one belonging to someone earning $54,000 with 14 months of expenses saved, belongs to someone who applies these rules consistently. They didn't get there through exceptional income. They got there through exceptional clarity about what actually matters. The first apartment, the one belonging to someone earning $95,000 with $2,200 in savings, belongs to someone who never questioned the assumption that more income means more stuff, and more stuff means a better life. Both lifestyles are available to you regardless of what you currently earn. The choice is whether you want to own your possessions or whether you're comfortable with your possessions owning you. And here's what nobody tells you about choosing the first option. The relationship between owning less and having more money is bidirectional. Owning less creates more money. That part is obvious. But having more money also makes owning less feel natural. When your savings account is substantial and your investments are growing, the urge to accumulate diminishes. The psychological need that drives most consumption, the need for security, for status, for control, gets satisfied by financial strength rather than physical possessions. You don't need the stuff to feel successful because your bank account already tells you the story you want to hear. People trapped in consumption cycles often can't explain why they buy so much. The truth is usually that spending temporarily fills an emotional void that financial insecurity creates. Fix the insecurity through actual financial strength, and the compulsion to spend often dissolves on its own. This creates a virtuous cycle. Spending less leads to saving more. Saving more creates genuine security. Security reduces the emotional drive to spend. Reduced spending accelerates saving further. Each turn of the cycle reinforces the next. The opposite cycle is equally powerful and equally self-reinforcing, just destructive. Spending everything creates insecurity. Insecurity drives more spending as temporary emotional relief. More spending deepens the insecurity. The cycle continues until some external shock forces a breaking point. The choice between these two cycles determines financial trajectory more than income ever could. High earners trapped in the destructive cycle build nothing. Modest earners riding the virtuous cycle build everything. The rules I've outlined aren't about suffering or deprivation. They're about recognizing that most consumption doesn't actually improve life satisfaction. Research consistently shows that beyond a baseline of comfort and security, additional purchases contribute minimally to well-being. Yet most people spend as if happiness scales linearly with spending. It doesn't. And the people who always seem to have more money than you, even though they earn less, are simply the ones who figured that out first. They spend enough to be comfortable. Then they redirect the excess toward freedom rather than accumulation. They end up with less stuff and more life. The math strongly favors that option. So does the peace of mind. Subscribe to Andy Explains Money if you want the next breakdown. I'll see you there.